Welcome back to Tea with HRT. I'm Brenda here with my co-host Sarah.
Hi, everybody. Today we're talking about work-life integration, how businesses are making it work, and the real cost of burnout. And we've got our very special guest, Farron, our director of HR at HR Transformed. Welcome, Farron.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course, happy to have you back again.
Yes, love these times together.
Farron, I think when we pitched this topic, everyone kind of said that you were the person to talk to. You seem to be like the work-life guru of the office. So could you give us a little like short intro into like why that's so important to you and how you've magically found this balance so well?
Yeah, so I have been working for over 10 years and it took a while to get to this level. However, I really fine-tuned being able to, work in work-life balance after becoming a mom because I realized there were certain priorities that could not be shifted. Um, before being a mom, there was opportunities where I could say, "Oh, that's okay. Like, I'm just going to stay here and keep working." And after becoming a mom, a child tugging on you or people needing you, it ch totally changes the scenario. So I've learned to fine-tune work-life balance and truly integrate it and commit to it.
So let's talk about burnout, recognizing and preventing it. Have you experienced it personally, and how and were you able to recover from it?
Yes, I have experienced burnout. It was during the COVID pandemic. Essentially, a lot of us went from working in an office space to working from home. And that shift changed things because when you work in an office space, you go into the office, your computer's there. There was never a time where you took your laptop home. And once people started working remotely, that laptop was readily available. You physically would see the notifications way past 5. And it was kind of hard to disconnect from that from your laptop because there was no physical like disconnection. Like before in COVID, you physically got up, left the office, whatever problems were left at the office stayed at the office. And now your problems are in your home. Your work problems are in your home. They live there. And a lot of people find it super quick to just like, oh, let me just handle this right now. Oh, I see this email come through. I'm just gonna do it right now. Whereas before it was like, oh my God, like I just saw this come through. I'm gonna have to deal with it tomorrow because I don't have my laptop. So when that happened, it was hard because I was on my laptop a lot and I was also needed a lot because it was the pandemic. So there's a lot of requirements from HR standpoint, whether it's documentation, having difficult conversations during the pandemic. So I was also burnt out because there was more demand for HR at that time. It took a while for me to recognize ways to get out of it. Signs for a manager to see is just a shift in your employee's attitude. And having that emotional intelligence to recognize those signs of, maybe they aren't being themselves, or maybe there's a shift in their work. You can tell that maybe they're not as focused. And you can, maybe there's little signs of like hard edits or emails not sounding in their natural tone. They sound maybe a little more like how somebody burnt out sounds like, which is like short, sent it off. Maybe they're not as engaging. And those are all signs. Um, of someone being burnt out. And I think it's so important to stay in communication with your employees when you do recognize those signs. And acknowledging like, hey, I acknowledge that this past year was really tough. And having that dialogue and opening that conversation up so they can express to you how they feel and they know that you care. And then giving them that opportunity to say, like, okay, well, I recognize that this has been really hard on you and validating how they feel and empathizing. And if you have the luxury of offering them days off, um, to do so, to help them kind of navigate their burnout. As a manager, you can't control how somebody else feels, but you can definitely give them the tools to manage it.
Yeah, thanks, Fair. And I think that's like really important insight. And it really leads us into our next point, which is, coming into the workforce. I think a lot of people wonder, how do you establish, like, how do you prevent yourself from getting burnout, like coming in? So, what are some key takeaways, tips that new hires should look out for, but also like managers coming in, having new employees? What is the dynamic there?
As a new hire, it's hard, right? Because you want to prove yourself that, like, I was the right decision. Like, I'm a workhorse. I'm going to be here. I'm going to sign on at 8 and I'm going to sign off at 7. And I'm the number one person. You're trying to establish your loyalty. You're trying to build that trust. However, it's really important to step back and recognize that that's not the only way to establish trust. Working long hours does not necessarily indicate that you are an amazing hard worker. Um, as a new hire, I think it's important to be true to yourself and acknowledge that. That whether you sign off at 5 or 8 p.m. doesn't dictate how well you are your performance is. It's really just the quality of work.
Mhm.
And what I always encourage people to do is to block times um, and set them as free. For example, lunchtime. Set it as free so if your team does need to book something, they can book it at that time. However, if someone is looking at your calendar and they see, oh, this is Sarah's lunchtime, I can move it back or forward, that they are able to honor that boundary for you. I know an EVP who always had a block on their calendar at 5, essentially indicating to their team that, hey, my kids are home now. The focus has shifted from work to family time. And if it's something urgent, feel free. However, it was kind of like a little flag for everyone to recognize that this is me time. So if you're someone who's super productive in the morning, and you need that moment of one-on-one between you and like your work, block that free time for yourself. Or if you're someone who lunchtime and you need that break, um, and you value that, put that. And also always staying in communication with your manager is so important because as long as you and your team know that, hey, I have met all my deadlines for today. I have connected with all the people I needed to connect with. Here are all the resources you need to know that I'm doing okay. Um, then you can really truly probably sign off at the time that you want to sign off because everything has been met. But just really honoring those boundaries is so important and establishing to your team very early on that these are my boundaries. It's important. And if you're someone who, Farron, it's too late. I've been in this job for 3 years, 2 years, 8 years. No one respects my boundaries. Having that communication of, hey, like, I'm turning a new leaf. I really want to dedicate this time to myself. I'm marking it as free. If you need me, I'm available. I'll be here. It's just my time to have my lunch, or I want to take my daily walk at this time. And that can happen if you're in the office or if you're remote. Um, and no one is going to ding you for wanting to do something good for yourself. And if they do, then maybe you need to reevaluate the company you're working for. If that's not if a value is not matching their values.
Yeah. Thank you, Farron. Those are really effective takeaways. I think for our listeners, it's helpful for, if our listeners are new hires entering a new workforce or even people who have been in the industry for a long time. So these are really helpful. We also want to take time and acknowledge that not every workplace allows employees to just simply step away when they need a break, right? Like if you're in a role where coverage is limited, like healthcare, retail, manufacturing, it's not easy just to take 5 minutes whenever you need it. And in those cases, I think it's just about finding micro moments for yourself, like advocating for structured breaks, like what you mentioned before, put them into your calendar or let
Yeah.
your team know, like, hey, around 2, 3, I need my time, and encourage leadership to kind of build the realistic support systems, right? Like,
Right.
if you tell your leader, like, hey, I need 20 minutes at around 2:30 to pick up my kids. But if they're not reinforcing that with the rest of the team, I think that's also another issue. Right? Like your manager doesn't bother you, but everyone else still bothers you, and your manager doesn't do anything about it. So we do recognize that workplace flexibility, it's not universal,
Right.
but it's an ongoing conversation that we need to have.
Yeah, and I wanted to add that, like, for example, I think of my sister who is full-time student, works full-time, and how can she make those breaks for people who are in those industries valuable? And I think just making them a positive experience is important. So if you're someone who like enjoys like a very special like seltzer or a special snack, give yourself that, if it's expensive or whatever, like turn it into a positive thing. Listen to your favorite song when you're having your break. Eat your favorite foods and just make the most of that experience. Turn it into a positive. And something like, oh, I only get 5 minutes to a day could be like the highlight of your day. And turning into something like that, which is so important. And then one more thing in terms of like what you said with you need to pick up your child at 2, or not even just your child. You need to do something at 2 o'clock. As long as your whole team is on the same page that Brenda just left, um, that shouldn't be a problem because everybody knows and everyone also has built that trust that she hasn't just disappeared, she's coming back. Or if I need her, I can ping her. So that's really important too, and goes back to just having that open form of communication and dialogue in terms of time management and how you want to structure your own day.
Righty. Well, I think that's a wrap. Thanks for so many insights, Farron. That's really awesome. Thanks for joining
Good.
us.
Thanks for hosting.
And to our listeners, feel free to respond below with some tips and tricks on how you integrate work and life and what your little self-love care activities are. So, as I ask Brenda every episode, I'm going to ask you, Farron, what are you drinking?
Iced coffee.
Woo! Brenda?
I am drinking my regular coffee in my favorite HRT mug.
And I, as per
Sure.
usual, have a cold brew. Oh, it's censoring it out. But
Yes.
I have my cold brew. All right, so let's cheers to taking some self-care in the
Yes.
workplace.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks for joining us on Tea with HRT. We hope you got some laughs, some insights, and maybe even a few things you can actually use. If you like this episode, subscribe, leave a comment, and tell a friend. Find us on social media. Links are all in the description. And let us know what you think or what you want to hear more about at tea@hrtransformed.com. Catch you next time on Tea with HRT, where work meets warmth.